Good morning, people. Thanks for coming to the Rippey Baseball Chat. I'm Mary Weaver, and my co-moderator is Nancy Hanneman, and we'll introduce our panel people. We start clear at the right with Ron Ridner. Ron graduated from East Greene in 1963. He played baseball at Rippey and then played also for East Greene, and I think played for the Rippey Demons.
Of course.
Okay. Ron lives in Ames now. Next to him is Kevin Hick. Kevin Hick is from Rippey. He really has a lofty title, the Rippey Baseball Commissioner. So he's going to have a lot to tell you about how we got the baseball field resurrected. Clear to my left is Fred Groh. Fred graduated from East Greene in 1964. He and Nancy were classmates. Ron and I were classmates also. And Fred played when Pat Doherty came to town, started in 7th grade and played throughout high school at Rippey, and then when Rippey and Grand Junction went together, he played for East Greene. And the person to my left, because he was my children's principal, I'm still calling him Mr. McNeil. His name is Ron McNeil. He was the principal at East Greene and the coach for the East Greene Hawks and came from Bagley. So Ron is hardly a stranger to us, but we're glad that you're all here. You'll notice they all have books. This is their thank you gift. And there's a nice article in here that Pat Doherty wrote about Rippey baseball. So you're going to be hearing about Pat Doherty throughout the hour presentation. So Nancy, you want to say anything, or should we go right to our panelists?
You can go right to the panels. I'll bump in later.
Okay. Well, panel, I told you didn't have to spend a lot of time prepping, so this is going to be a memory test rather than a prep test. Ron, what was the most exciting thing that happened to you at Rippey Baseball Park?
Oh my gosh. Well, of course, that's a good question. Exciting. Well, they used to have a tryout camp at Rippey, and I think it was the Pittsburgh Pirates held a tryout camp. And at the last day of the tryout camp, the Rippey Demons played kind of a all-star team from the tryout camp, young kids, young adults. And I just remember this. It sounds like bragging. I'm not going to talk about myself in this, but I was playing center field, and there was a hit long, deep center field, and I ran, and finally I caught up with it, and stretched out as far as I could and caught that ball. And so to me, that was one of the most exciting events. You know, I hit some home runs. That was exciting. And all the time I was having success early in the year. I came to bat and I think I hit a home run, and then Bill Fouch and Charlie Tipton were the announcers. And so after that, every time I come to back, and with the short porch out there in right field, I'd hit a little pop-up to the second baseman, and Bill Fouch would go, "There she goes," you know. in the next game or so, I did a fly ball to the outfield. There she goes, and so I didn't know if they could actually see the ball up there in the high part of the grandstand or not. So there's been a lot of high points. I think I remember mostly after a hard day's work with KD Construction. I'd be the first one to the ballpark. I'd back my 57 Chevy up on top of the hill, so I was overlooking everything. Everything was peaceful, quiet. The diamond was groomed, all the lines were straight, the grass was mowed, and it was a beautiful sight. Almost spiritual, but maybe not quite. But and I'd be the first one there. Jim Fouch would be either he was there or he would have been the next one there for sure. And we had a pitching machine out in the left field corner. And we'd all go down and take batting practice. This was about an hour and a half before the game. So in those days, everybody showed up. They were excited to play. And the games could be long, but you know what? It was baseball. It was quiet baseball. you could hear the people chattering. When something good happened, you'd hear the horns honk. But that was about all the sound that you'd hear. In contrast to present games, you got the walk-up music for the players to walk to the plate to hit. You got the screaming announcers all the time. And you have to have these in between. I'm talking about mostly down at Principal Park. If you got these little gimmicky games that go on in between innings that keeps people tuned into the game so nobody goes to sleep, I guess. But at Rippey, it was quiet. You talk about chirping crickets. You could hear chirping crickets almost, but you could hear the chatter of the games among the players. And it might go till 11, 11:30. And by that time, people have drifted home. And there were 18 players out there just kind of enjoying the game without any distractions. Yeah. I didn't mention that one of the introductions to the game night was Paul Crumley taking that American flag out to the center field and pulling the flag up. That was one of the things you could depend on. So it was just a good time to be a young baseball player.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah.
Fred, we're going to turn to you. Try to tell us some of those stories that you encountered when you were playing baseball at Rippey, and then when you played for the East Greene Hawks. Who was your coach?
Well, in little like pee-wees or stuff like that, Griffin, I think, was a coach. I mean, we wasn't real close, but and you have 1,000 kids and they try to divide you up and everything that way. And then in junior high, when I was in 7th grade, that's when Pat Doherty came in, and Pat had all the baseball and junior high basketball and everything. And what a coach! That was the best thing that ever happened to a young man like me. And Ron, I'm sure too. Ron is a year older than I was, and we played a lot of ball together in junior high, both basketball and baseball and everything. But Pat Doherty really made baseball in Rippey after he came. The biggest thing I remember with Pat, you couldn't be the best player or anything, but you had to dress. You had to be right. You had a class on how you wore your uniform, and you had the right colors. If your sweatshirt didn't go along with the colors, you had to get a different one. But he was very big on that, and always remember that. Pat was sharp, sharp-looking player and everything. Growing up watching the town team and everything, when I was younger, you would race to get through the ball games and stuff, and usually you was trying to get to be bat boy. The first guy that asked Pat, could I be bat boy? And Dave Chase usually beat because he was in town there and everything. So then the next big was the keeping score down the third baseline, the wooden plaque with metal deals. You tried to get on that. And if you didn't get that, then you got a couple, 3 guys together. We would often, like Jim Burke, Randy Overman, and me, we'd work together on chasing foul balls, different section. And then between us 3, we would work together that way. So remember that and everything. That's where you went to watch baseball, Rippey Demons and stuff. Pat, of course, came when I was in 7th grade, and then we had him in high school and everything. And then when my sophomore year, he was called back to the Army, and we lost out on him as basketball and everything. But he was guaranteed a coaching job when he got out of the service again, when he called back. So that's when we reorganized in junior year, my junior year, Ron's senior year, at East Greene. Well, Otis Roby was a coach at East Greene. We was Grand Junction and Rippey always were really tough ball games. They all wanted to win so much. They was all good ball players. And I swear Otis knew what he was coming up when he put Rippey and East Greene together. He knew he was going to have a heck of a team. So he done some politicking, and he got the head baseball coach that year. Ron had been a senior, I'd been a junior, and Doherty was going to be assistant. And I knew that wouldn't last for Doherty being assistant. And he just stayed that year. And then when Ron graduated and we were seniors then, he went to Algona, Garrigan, I think.
And had a good baseball team up
Yeah,
there.
yeah. But we had some good ball, both basketball and baseball with Doherty, and a lot of great memories and everything.
Mary, can I, it's a quick
Sure.
Pat Doherty story. The Rippey Demons came about because Pat Doherty knew someone in the Des Moines Demons office, and they were changing teams, changing names. So he talked to Walt Anderson, for whom the field is named now, who was president of the Lions Club, and found out that they could buy these uniforms for, I don't know, something like $3 a uniform or something like that. So they bought all those uniforms, so there wasn't any contest to become the Rippey Demons. It was because somebody had the shirts for sale.
Ron, you're going to be up next. You were the principal after Rippey had gone to East Greene, or gone to Grand Junction, and we were called East Greene. What's the biggest thing you remember? And I wonder, we don't want to get into bad laundry, but were you there when Otis Roby was there?
No.
No? Okay, it was after that.
Right. I came in the fall of '81
Okay.
because Mr. Anderson hired me. At that time, he had just taken the job because he had been at Stuart Minlow. So he called me up on a Sunday and said, meet me at the Harris house for coffee, which was nothing new because I was at Prescott at that time. And he said, let's go for a little ride. I said, well, where are we going? He said, we're going to Grand Junction. He said, I just became the superintendent and I'd like you to be my principal.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, up we came. And then he said, now, you can be the baseball coach if you'd like to be, because I had a successful program at Prescott. And I said, no, wait a minute. Who's the baseball coach now? Well, Mr. Toyn. And I said, is he under contract? And he goes, yeah. I says, well, I'm not interested in coaching any baseball until Mr. Toyn decides to give it up. And so in 1984, Mr. Toyn gave up the baseball, and then I coached from '84 to '89. But the thing that I remember most about, especially when I was a young man, is just like Fred was talking about, going to the Rippey baseball Demons Sunday afternoon. My grandmother was a very avid baseball fan. We would drive up there from Jamaica, watch the ball games, and, you know, it was a real battle to get that nickel for that foul ball, because you had all sorts of people running after that nickel, and like today, they just throw a nickel out in the, you know, side of the road, think nothing about it. But, you know, back then you get a bag of popcorn for a nickel, and, you know, things were very, very cheap. But the thing that impressed me the most, my first association with Rippey baseball and playing is when I was in school, you played spring baseball, you played summer baseball, and you played fall baseball, because here in the book it mentions Dave Chase and Harvey Rice. I played against both those guys, the Fagan boys at that time. And the thing that I can remember from my youth about playing in Rippey is we were up there playing a spring baseball game, and my first at bat I led off. I threw a pitch in and I knocked it out over the left field fence. And they used to have, if I'm not mistaken, some kind of a skate cart or something out there, and I thought, boy, this is an easy game. Well, after that I went for like 0 for 20 because I thought, you know, oh, man, that's easy to hit out there. But when I was a baseball coach, I had what I called was a baker's dozen. I had 13 kids come out, and that's all that came out. And I had a group of seniors at that time come to me and say, Mr. McNeil, we really want Mr. Toyn back as a baseball coach. I said, here's the deal, boys. Give me 6 games. And if after 6 games you still want Mr. Toyn back as your baseball coach, I'll make that arrangements and he'll come back. Well, after the first 6 games, they were a believer in what I was trying to get them to do, because we always opened up at that time with Manson, and Jack Perry was the principal and the baseball coach at Manson, and they had the Falloon boys, and both of them played football for the University of Iowa. First game we went up there and we got beat 22-0 in 3 innings. Jack said, "You want to play any longer?" I said, "No, let's take a break and we'll go to the second game." The second game, we got beat 9-0, and I told the kids, I said, "Well, look how much we improved." And they looked at me like, "Who is this kind of crazy fool telling us?" But when I first coached baseball, I told them, I said, "Now look, you can play any position you want." And they looked at me like, "Oh, okay." Well, after the first few games, I said, "Okay, now you got to play where you want. Now I'm going to play where you need to be playing." Because I'll use Dean Lyons, for example. He had a soft arm. He had to play on the lip of the infield. Scott Marr had a stronger arm, and he played deeper on the infield. Because I always used to tell the first base coach, or first base umpire, "Don't sell my shortstop short, because he's going to get him at first, and it's going to be about like that." So I would plant the seed before it started.
Good idea.
Yeah, but that was Baker's dozen. Of course, you know, you could have the reentry rule, and you could use a designated hitter, you could use designated runner, so it was no problem for me to get all the kids in play. Because at that time, I drove one of the Suburbans, my wife drove one of the Suburbans, and she was just talking about that yesterday. She goes, "Does kids do that now?" And I said, "Oh no." I said, you couldn't do that nowadays. I said, "You'd have to take a bus and, you know, and all that kind of stuff." But I still remember those years that I coached, and it was very, very fulfilling for me.
Mary, I just thinking about Ron describing the serenity of the field. Well, in addition to it being a quiet place for kids from probably at least junior high on up, as it was also a social center for the summer. And you met your friends there, and if you showed up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, that meant you were really committed. Because everybody in town knew about it too by that time.
Well, Kevin, we saved you till last to speak because you've been really integral in getting the baseball field back resurrected and having games. Tell us just briefly, like, how you got that happening and what's going to happen next.
Okay, well, I can't take all the credit, of course. It takes a team, and so it was probably 3 years ago or plus that Mel Merkin come back to town, moved back to Rippey, and he has been a coach at East Greene, Rippey, and so he wanted to get the field back in running condition, and he did. And my brother, Dave, he got wind of this and wanted to know, if he plays for the MIBL down out of Des Moines, and he plays on a team there. It's an adult baseball league for men, and so he wondered about playing ball coming back to Rippey and playing ball, and eventually that happened, and Mel and his crew, Harvey Rice and Merle Jackson, have been a big help with that, getting that field back in condition and keeping it going, and also with improvements. But it was about I don't know 2 years ago, maybe a little more, that we formed, or maybe it hasn't been 2 yet. We formed the Rippey Baseball Commission, and we wanted that formed to have some leadership for the ball diamond, for the ball field, for that specific area. Because before the commission was formed, the guys that played with David on his team out of Des Moines there got a Rippey Ruckus scheduled and started, which is a weekend tournament, and they invited out-of-state teams to come. Well, the first one we had teams from Minnesota. We had one team from Minnesota. We had several other teams that I can't remember on that very first one that they had, and it was a huge success. The guys liked it a lot. They played a flat fee to come play ball there for that weekend tournament. We decided to have a traveling trophy. So we got a traveling trophy for that winning team to take. And that really boosted things for not only in Rippey, but it boosted the morale of the guys out of Des Moines that said, golly, we need to come here and play ball, because this is about the best field that we play ball on, as far as they was concerned. And so we got that started, and this year we had Ruckus. We had 5 teams. So we had to do some, as the guys sitting here know, a round robin tournament doesn't work very good with 5 teams, but you can make it work, and we did. And of course, Mother Nature had to play with that a little bit. So we had 2 games scheduled for Friday. We couldn't throw a pitch because the field was too wet, the weather was nasty, and so we had to call that off. So we moved everything to Sunday, those games to Sunday, and we got her done, and it was a good turnout and a good success, and always hear good comments from those out-of-state teams that come and play. And so that was good to hear and good to know. This year also, the year before we was able to get a couple of high school games to come. They would agree, the high schools agreed to come play in Rippey, because it actually, in all reality, it was a neutral site for them, and it was also a neutral site as far as driving goes, kind of in the middle. And so that helped a lot. One instance was Clarion Goldfield played, I can't spit that other team out now, but it was a halfway point, and Rippey was a neutral site for them, and it worked out good. And they were in agreement with. And all we ask when the high school teams come is that we know that you already have a game scheduled. We know that you already have the umpires scheduled. So please bring your umpires, provide your umpires, and we'll provide the field. One catch. We get the admission fee, and we get the concession stand proceeds. And they were all good with that. And I tell you what, when those fans come for that game, they support their players. And it's
Heartwarming.
it is. And to hear the comments from the people that come and compliment us on the field is good.
That field was in horrible shape before Mill came back to town. I mean, for those of you who aren't from here, there were milkweeds growing along the first base path. It was in really bad shape. Nancy?
Well, I think one of the really tremendous efforts was our 150th plus one in Rippey, because it was supposed to be in 2020. The baseball games had usually been in the evening at 4th of July when I live at my childhood home now, but you could see the lights on, so we knew we could go into town if the game was going to be going on. Well, sure enough, it rained that day, and Kevin, you may have been part of the crew too. They had to come in and put more, what did they have to put on it? I'm not sure.
Quick dry.
Floor dry. Actual oil dry, yeah.
I don't know how many people were out there doing it. The game was supposed to have been played in the afternoon.
Yes.
Which it was a little bit of a stretch for people who had come thinking they were going to be playing and being able to leave. For those of us who grew up with the baseball field, the game was when it should have been in the evening, and the fireworks were after that.
Right after
Now,
that, yes.
it was an inconvenience for the players and the other people, but it was really a great finish for the 150th event with that happening, and just greatest appreciation to the people who worked probably most of the day until up to the time when people were supposed to go onto the field, or that game wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, it took many hands that day, that's for sure. We, like Nancy said, we wound up playing the ball game, and that was pretty awesome because we had developed several teams to come play, and it was a fun time. It was one of them fun games to have on that ball field. I guess to go back to the Rippey Commission a little bit, the Rippey Commission is now officially a 501c3, thanks to a lot of hard work to Mary and Mary Ann, my wife. We got that done, and we got it accomplished. It took a little bit, but we got it done. And so the way the commission survives is strictly by donations. And we've gotten several good sponsorships. We've gotten several really nice donations from people that knew the field from back when Ron and Fred played on it, and that has helped us a lot. And so also now that makes us so we can really apply for some grants, and so we can get in the grant list of things for some money to make improvements, because we're always doing improvements. Since the commission started, our priority was to, of course, get the field up in good running condition. So one of our first goals was to definitely keep the grass and weeds under control. So we had that field sprayed and fertilized by a professional company, and we've done that for the past 3 years, and that has made a world of difference. I just remember, that when East Greene still played ball there, they had Jim Hoyle and his company come and take care of that, and Sean DeMoss always mowed it and always looked so nice then. And then when the East Greene quit playing ball there, East Greene quit playing ball and it became Greene County Schools. They played a few games there on a junior high level, I believe, and then eventually they come here to town in Jefferson to play their games, which works out good. It made sense, but that's how the field got out of shape so bad. But we got it back in shape now, and so we're just dependent upon donations. We have other goals that we have. We just got some work done on the front of our grandstand. The grandstand was built in the early 40s, and so it has been approved upon several times, and but it still needs improvement, and we really want to keep that grandstand there, because that is, besides the field itself, that is the other calling card to the Walt Anderson Field. And then let's see, where else was I going with that? So anyway, we're always looking for donations. Improvements. Besides the grandstand, to keeping that up, we had a nice donation just this season with a PA system with some outdoor speakers, and so there you go again. We have to get our noise on. It seems like in today's time and effort, but by having those people donate, that's what gets us through the year, our season, and we have improvements for the. We still need some windscreen on, which is the banners / netting that goes around the outside, the outfield fencing there. When you go by, you notice that it's not all covered yet. That got started by what they call the batter's eye. They got that taken care of with the batter's eye. We did that first, and that makes it so that the batter can keep an eye on the ball coming out of the pitcher's hand. it has a solid background in the, and that helps them a lot. And so anyway, we're always looking for donations, and we want to keep this up and going. The last thing I'll say about the commission is that the city has gratefully, the city of Rippey, we have been in a lease agreement. We're in the second year of a lease agreement with the city of Rippey. And that allows the commission to take care of the ball field. And the agreement was that we'll take care of the ball field. We'll even mow the existing outside part of the ball field, so the city doesn't have to mow that. And the city was in favor of that, so that helps us out a lot. And then by us mowing the property, all that property from field to field to park to county shed, we, well, not quite clear to the park, but on the south side of the park around the restroom building. But anyway, and then they pay for the water bill and the light bill. And you know the light bill, it gets pricey sometimes with the lights, but they've been in agreement with that for 2 years now. So we're very, very grateful for that, and that works out good. Yes, sir.
We're from Jefferson. We have a reason to watch baseball. We're excited to go to Rippey to watch Greene County play Perry.
Awesome.
We
Yes.
got disappointed when the water stopped one of the games, but it's a great venue,
Yeah.
a great place. And when I tell people about it, I say, they even have a grandstand.
Yes, sir.
Really something.
Yes, sir.
It's beautiful.
Yes, thank you.
I hope
Thank
it
you.
continues for years and years and years.
Yes, thank you. We do too. And yes, that high school game was awesome to have between Greene County and Perry.
Except for the score.
Well, except for that storm, yeah. But they was still able to get that game in that day. And so like I said, we like our high school games, and we've been lucky to get. We had like 5 or 6 on the schedule this year, and it was really nice and awesome. And we had some very good crowds for those games, because we had Van Meter, which is a baseball powerhouse there. We had Gilbert there also, and we had Ankeny Centennial there, which Mel Merkin has an Ankeny connection, because when he left East Greene to coach, from coaching he went to Ankeny, and then he had very strong teams in Ankeny, so he has a good following from the Ankeny people still to this day. So that was nice to have that game also here. And then I guess I'll mention one other game that we had this year was the 70th anniversary of a state championship ball game that was played in Rippey. And the 2 teams agreed to come. We contacted them way early because we knew about this anniversary coming up. We contacted them way early, and they were both really excited to come play. Now that was, and I think again, our location really helped, because the one team is Council Bluffs Jefferson, so they're coming from the west side. The other team was Dysart, if I remember right, when the original game was played. But now it's LaPorte City, Dysart, one of them conglomerates. But anyway, south of Waterloo School District there, and we were a neutral field. And so that was awesome to have them come and play for that
Very
anniversary
one
game.
comment about the love of that ball field and everything. After Ron graduated from East Greene, we had fall ball. We still had fall ball when he was a senior. When I went into our senior year then, they dropped fall ball and they brought football into East Greene. Okay? The only problem was East Greene did not have a football field. So they said, well, we'll make it on the Rippey baseball field.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I'm telling you, you want a war. with the reorganization from East Greene and Rippey, the kids got along pretty good. But there's a long time, between the parents, how many Rippey kids playing, how many Grand Junction kids playing and everything. Anyway, boy, when they made the appointment they was going to have that ball field as a football field, I'm telling you, Dargrill, my dad, was one of the leaders. I thought he was going to have a heart attack, but it didn't make any difference. They did 1 year or maybe 2 years.
1 or 2.
I think they did 2 seasons. That's one kid memory that I have.
Yeah, 2
we
seasons.
We moved to Rippey the summer before I started kindergarten.
But boy, I'm telling you, the
Yeah.
Rippey people were really uptight about that.
Yeah,
Taking that baseball field into a football field.
yeah.
Back to the baseball commission for just a minute. One of the games when Gilbert played, high school games this year, Gilbert played somebody. Elkhart. Phyllis McElhenney at Lepke now, she and her husband and their son, who played for Gilbert when he was in high school, sponsored the game. And they, I think on the Facebook page and things, there are pictures of Phyllis and her son throwing the first pitch. So it was because, of course, Phyllis grew up around here. It was because of their connection that they sponsored the game and were encouraging other people maybe to do the same.
Yes.
Just kind of an aside, but since this is for Greene County Historical Society, I want to just give you a brief history, and then we'll go back to our panelists. The first baseball team started in Rippey in 1880. It was called the Hard Scrabble Team. No one had bats. They used willow, I'll call it branches, not twigs, but willow branches. Their gloves were just plain work gloves that sometimes they stuffed straw in or handkerchiefs. Of course, there was no admission. People walked to the field or rode their horses or a buggy, and the field, the very first field, was right across from where the current field is. Then it moved around to several different locations, and finally in 1940, Mabel Martin, who lived in Rippey, she donated $2,000, and we started to call the field the Martin Field, and it was named because at that point her nephew was the only survivor of the Civil War that was still alive in Greene County, so it was called the Martin Field. They got lights in 1949, a good reminiscent of what Fred is saying. They went around and sold shares for $50 each to 1,000 people so they could get the lights for $5,000. So it's always been a real community effort. The final thing that I'll share about was that the first game was with Bagley in 1940, June 18th. You probably can't remember, can you?
No, I wasn't around.
I didn't think so. But it's really, Rippey has been a baseball town for a long time. I'm going to let Nancy talk to you about some of the things that she brought, and then we'll go back to the panel.
Well, you collect an interesting array of things when you're part of the Historical Society. The shirt I told you about, the Rippey Demons, the one with Killam Hardware on, there was a time at which the team, interestingly enough, was called the Rippey Merchants, which is exactly why it should have been, because the First National Bank, the Rippey Savings Bank, whoever owned the grocery store, the Burke Auto, Fry Chevrolet, they all had the shirts, and so that was on the back of the uniforms. I don't know what they paid for them, probably not $1 or $2. But the hat is one that the Baseball Commission is selling, as well as a shirt that I can show you later, which has Rippey as a baseball team on it. They first were selling the ones with Rippey Demons on it, and I asked my cousin Marianne if I could trade in my Rippey Demon shirt, but she said, no, I have to pay for another one. And the one cap is the gray one is the one that was around at the time of our 150th. And the shirts that, what happens, my husband and I have on, one of the parts of the insignia for the sesquicentennial was baseball. And the mural on the side of it's the Rolling Hills Bank now, has a lot of the baseball tradition in it. And Sarah Stotts, who is the art teacher in Greene County Community Schools, her grandfather, Don Kuhn, was a graduate of Rippey High School, as well as her uncle and aunts and a whole bunch of other people. And so that mural really highlights Rippey as a baseball town.
Fred, I know that Dave Chase sent you some things to share. You want to do that?
Sure.
Maybe say a little bit about who Dave is.
Dave Chase is son of Dr. Chase. His wife's name was
Pearl.
Pearl. Yeah, I should remember that. Grew up there in Rippey and everything. Graduated from East Greene and stuff. And he was in the same class as my wife, and they periodically email back and forth, and they've been getting together some of the classmates for lunch every month and everything. But Dave found out that I was doing this between email and everything, and he wrote a couple notes to Jackie and said when he was a bat boy, and like I say, he usually got there first, so he got to be bat boy quite a bit. But Pat Doherty was playing second base, and Otis Roby was playing third base on that team. Bill Fouch, my cousin, Jim Fouch's brother. Larry Gilroy was a pitcher, left-hander, tremendous pitcher, went to Buena Vista and played. And then, I didn't know this, but Ivan Lindell played in the outfield.
Yeah.
And he came into the First National Bank for years in there. I didn't realize that, but he was in the outfield. And then Donnie Drake was catching a lot of times for that. But there was some pretty good ball players and everything. One quick note, ball player, they were seniors. Donnie and Larry Gilroy and everything. And when I was coming out of 8th grade, you could play summer high school ball if the coach wanted you. And Pat Doherty asked me and Dale Robson, you can want a suit. We never played, but we could have a suit. But they were some mighty good ball players there. And it was just a joy to be amongst them because you heard so much about Roger Crumley, all those. They were fine athletes and had a real good reputation, but that was neat.
Among the tidbits of information I have that I managed to find, this is from the Jefferson Bee, August 29, 1961. The Rippey Demons finished the 1961 season with a record of 20 wins and 5 losses. The leading hitters were Otis Roby with a 350 bat average and Darrell Swisher with a 345 average. Leading, the runs, Roger Crumley 19, Doherty 18. Batting averages, Otis Roby first base 350. It has a bat. Roger Crumley, Gerald Swisher, Pat Doherty played second base. Bob Motti outfield. Don Drake catcher. Carl Killam third base. Ivan Lindell outfield. Jim Basie outfield. Bill Heffley outfield. Danny Peer pitcher. Anley Tweet pitcher, Larry Gilroy pitcher, and Bill Fouch pitcher. And there's however another article in here a little while back. They didn't have quite a good season that year. They were last in the league. But.
Ron, you played for that town team, didn't you?
Well, that was a little before me.
Okay.
But I got a taste of most of those guys, and they were great to be around. Otis Roby was he was feisty on the baseball field. He was famous for his belly slides into second base, and the crowd go, oh! And Roger Crumley, what more can we say about Roger? He was everything. He was an accomplished pianist, and he was all-state chorus, all-state band. Of course, a great athlete in both baseball and basketball. Went to Simpson for 3 years and then went on to Iowa Medical School. And then after that, he became a renowned head and neck surgeon. He'd go around internationally and give demonstrations and lead conferences on a certain technique or whatever. He's now, just for everybody's information, I think, I don't know for sure, because he's retired, and where would you retire besides Palm Springs, California? And so he had his choice, and that's where he is. And I was also going to mention that Pat Doherty kind of opened up he went to Simpson. He kind of opened up a pipeline. John Bardole went to Simpson. Roger went to Simpson, as I said, for 3 years. Donnie Drake went to Simpson, was a catcher.
Did Roger Underwood go to Simpson too?
Yeah, Roger Underwood. He's from Grand Junction, but
Sometimes we like people from Grand Junction.
yeah. No, I was Roger's roommate for at least a year, and so yeah, he was a good ball player too. But did I miss anybody going down on besides Nancy?
Yeah, well, I
Nancy
didn't count for baseball.
And Nancy's husband was at Simpson. It was a nice little family down there. But and you mentioned, I was just going to comment that Pat Doherty was pretty fussy about how he looked on the field, and he was fussy about how he looked in the classroom too.
Yes.
He always wore the nice suits, and he grew up down in southwest Iowa, and it wasn't real a wealthy area down there, so he was making up for lost time. He wanted to look nice in the classroom, and he wanted to look nice on the baseball field. So
Yeah, just in a short history of Pat Doherty, he then went on to, who ended up with the Colorado Rockies.
Scout.
he
As-
bounced
as a
around a little
scout.
bit. He was a scout.
Yeah, and he ended up as their director of player development
Yeah.
or something. Two of the other players from a little farther back that were noted in Rippey history were Dan Peters and Lester Zanotti.
Yeah.
Mary led a baseball program for the Historical Society
Ron was on it.
3 or 4 years ago, was it? And both Dan and Lester were able to be there. Dan was the player that came closest to the major leagues. He tried out for whoever it was, Kansas at the Milwaukee. And he played for a farm team 1 year, and I don't know, 1 or 2 times he actually got to bat, I think. But because of that, when he went to Morningside College, he could not compete on a college team because he had been paid. He ended up being head of the lab in a hospital, so he did okay. Lester Zanotti was a very brief history. His father was a coal miner and died in 1947 when there was an accident at the mine, and Lester was about 11 years old. His brother Ardich was quite a bit older. I didn't know till many years later that my dad provided a job for Leva Zanotti and Lester so they could stay in cleaning the bank and stuff. Anyway, so Lester ended up on a baseball scholarship to the University of Iowa, and he then had a chance to play when he was drafted into the Army. And I don't remember, he thought, well, I'm never going to get a play in the position I'd really like to because there's all these former major leaguers and stuff. Well, the first baseman got sent overseas, so Lester got to play first base. And it was either his mother or his sister compiled a notebook or scrapbook of his baseball playing. And at one point when there was a display about local sports, I had a hold of some of that. And it was... it's quite a history of those two people particularly, and that they both, as they were able to over the years, have come back and found the town for a variety of reasons to really be that it took a village to raise those two, and they certainly were shining examples of people who were great baseball players and cared about the community.
I think we'll switch and let people that are in the audience talk to us. Fran, you have been a loyal, helpful baseball participant and donate to the Rippey field. What do you remember about playing? Well, you didn't play, but Jack played at Rippey. Do you have a remembrance about that?
Oh, lots of remembrances. But probably my proudest moment is that I got to throw out one of the first pitches at the Rippey celebration game.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. I think it was a strike.
Absolutely.
I practiced long and hard.
With more years, it'll become a curveball one of these days.
Yeah. Even a knuckle-
Yeah, there.
Right.
So I watched baseball at Rippey since I was in elementary school, all through school, all through high school. And then Jack came back and played for the Rippey Demons, so I was at some of those games too for years and years.
You lived your family grew up just south of the ball field, a short way. Did the girls ever chase foul balls, or was that always a boys' thing?
No, we wouldn't let them in.
That's what I thought.
So you didn't chase balls?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Ruth, I know you brought some remembrances, and you brought your annuals. I think we might wait until our hour is going by so quickly, but tell us a little bit about your remembrances of Rippey baseball.
Well, I graduated in 1948, and I have annuals from 1946, 1947, and 1948, which I've marked, so it has the baseball team on it. My brother graduated in 1947, and of course he played on the team. And just an aside, it wasn't part of the organized, because all they had was girls basketball. But we played on a softball team, and we played on the Rippey Diamond, and my sister and I both played on that team. Camilla Burke was the pitcher, and Egbert Glidden was the coach. Yeah, and we actually played some teams from other towns.
And you played on the baseball field?
I played on the baseball team.
Are there other people that I need to call on that want to share remembrances of being at a Rippey ball game or playing there? Okay, we're going to do one more final spin. This hour has just gone by way fast. We only have 8 minutes left. Ron, all the times that you were there, did you ever get kicked out by the umpire?
No.
Should you have?
Pardon?
I said, should you have?
Yes.
What did you
we were
do?
playing in the sub-state final at Denison, playing Nation of Valley of Hastings.
I was there, well,
And
Brother Davis.
Mark Monty was up with bases loaded. Back then is when they used chalk, not paint, down the foul lines. Mark hit a sizzling line drive past the third baseman, and it hit chalk, and I scored everybody. And I looked down there, and the umpire is standing, foul ball. And I run down there, and I go, how in the hell can you call that a foul ball when it blew chalk? And he looked at me, and he said, Coach, you want to stay in this game for the rest of the day? And I go, yeah. He said, well, then get your ASS back into the coaching box.
Yay.
Oh,
And we
wow.
got beat 3-0.
Oh, we'll have to ask Mark about that.
Yeah.
I bet he remembers.
Oh, yeah. I had everybody scoring. Bases loaded, and he hit that sizzler. Blue chalk. Foul ball. Oh, yeah.
Ron,
I was gonna ask if Jake Peters was your coach.
Yes, yeah.
I want to tell a story about Jake Peters
Go.
because I've been wanting to do this, and this might be my last opportunity. I should have done it before. Of course, Jake hasn't been around for a while, and now Dan, who probably would have enjoyed the story too, is not with us anymore. So I thought I'd better do it while I'm still with us now. But when I came to Rippey in 1958, just after they built the new gym, and they built a new shop just shortly after that. They had an open house for I always want to say I came in from Berkeley School, which I like to refer to as Berkeley Preparatory Academy. Now it sounds better. But they're having the open house, and they provided a big vat of coffee, which were prepared by Jake Peters. And he had a reputation of making good, stout coffee, I guess. Well, Bob Sherrington was there, and he encouraged me to try a cup of coffee because that's kind of a rite of passage. Everybody has to have a drink of Jake's coffee. So I piled a bunch of sugar and some cream in there. And anything with sugar in it has to be good. So I think I downed most of the cup of coffee and made it home, but barely made it home. I got deathly ill, threw up, broke out in the hives, and so that was the effect of the coffee. And so, but I did make it through 8th grade, made it through Rippey through 3 years, graduated from East Greene, made it through 4 years at Simpson. After that, another 2 years of graduate school and a couple of years in the Army, 35-year professional career at the DOT in Ames, and 46 years of marriage, 3 children, 5 grandchildren, 1 on the way. And guess what? The punchline: I have not had another drink of coffee. All that time, not one drink. I know I've saved some money in the process, but I've also probably missed out on a lot of friendships by not drinking coffee.
Good
I'm
story.
glad I got that story. Thank you very much.
And it's on
That's
tape.
good.
Oh.
That's good.
Kevin, would you like to have a parting shot? You got about 2 minutes.
Oh, golly. Yeah, just, I would like just again reach out and please feel free to donate to the cause for the Walt Anderson Field in Rippey.
Maybe
One-
share who's on the commission.
Pardon?
Members of your commission.
Members of my commission are Dave Hick, my brother, Mel Merkin, Harvey Rice, Ron Brown, Dale Thompson, and Bruce Tomey. And we make a good committee, a good team. And we don't always agree on everything, but to me, that's all part of having a good committee. And the one thing that I remember about the ball team, the ball field, a couple things. I do remember the football games in the outfield because Dad was a janitor at the Rippey building, and so Dad and I was able to go watch the football games in the outfield there. And if you look from the top of the grandstand, top row of the grandstand, you can still tell right where that football was played today. The grass is just different there. And then the next story I'll tell is that one morning during summer, I got a knock on the door, and it was Coach Burton Toyne. And he was my baseball coach. He'd been my baseball coach since senior Little League. That's the time that I started playing. We didn't start playing ball until we had senior Little League. I didn't anyway, when you're junior high age. But anyway, I was in charge of mowing the ball field that year. So I get this knock on my door in the morning, and he says, "Kevin," he says, "I need that ball field mowed." I said, "Yes, Coach." So I went and did it.
Okay. Fred, do you have a parting shot that you'd like to share?
Oh boy, there's so many great ones and everything. I'm just going to say, after all these good ball players left and everything, and I was a freshman, and they needed pitchers. And Dale Robson and I was pitching. Dale, one of the best pitchers around later years, but he would come in and go about 4 innings, do well, but as a freshman would go out. And then Pat would have me come in and finish up the ball game. And it was just different night and day. Dale could close curveballs, make them look at me. All I could do was throw strikes, so they just hit me all over. But I was, for one year, Dale and I done the pitching together. Then after that, Dale could go all the way.
Well, Mr. McNeil, what parting shot would you like to tell us?
I can remember the year that they put crushed brick on the Rippey ball field. That was in 1984, and I thought, boy, this is fantastic. Until the first time one of the kids slid into the base. And that was the worst decision we made. It looked good. It was crushed red brick. Oh man, it was fancy. But we never give that a thought. But we sure did after that.
Oh, I bet. Oh, gee. Nancy, you helped get all this organized. Would you like to say anything as we finish up?
No, except come to the Rippey baseball games.
Audience, do you have anything you want to ask or share? Fran?
I believe my dad took tickets at the first Rippey game under the lights. which happened to be the day I was born.
Oh,
And my mother was not happy. That she went to the baseball game instead of coming to the hospital.
oh, so we know that was 1949.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Mary,
Yes,
I
Mike.
had to go help a friend. I was gone for about 15 minutes. There was a gentleman who presented a program about a month ago here in Jefferson about the professional baseball teams that came to Greene County, Dallas County, and around. One was the New York Yankees. Babe Ruth played at Perry, and a number of teams came. Did professional teams ever back in the 30s, 40s, 20s ever come to Rippey? I think they did. I followed train schedules. That's why Babe Ruth and the Yankees ended up in Perry, Iowa. But do you folks know any of that from the 20s, 30s, or 40s at Rippey?
I am not aware.
From the stories we should have been paying attention to from our fathers, I don't remember that, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah, because all the professional teams, American League and National League, went all throughout the Midwest by trains. And as you know, trains stopped in every town.
To dig through the old
They
papers.
put on a game, and that's what I wondered.
Good question. That'll be a good thing to
Well,
follow
it'd
up
be a fun
on.
thing to look up.
Right.
Be a fun thing.
Yes.
I was just going to inquire, has there ever been a consideration of exploration of the possibility of the ball diamond being considered for inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places?
That's a good question for the commission.
Yeah.
No, we have not,
I mean-
we have not thought about that, but that might be a
It'd probably
good,
take a lot of documentation, but
Probably.
it'd be a real,
Yeah, that would be a thrill.
yeah, it'd be a,
Wow.
that would be awesome, yes. Thank you, Ron.
Okay, people. Ruth is here with her annuals, and I'm eager to look at them. So, but we're going to shut off the video. So, thank you, Roger, for doing that. Thank you, panel. They are all getting a History of Rippey book, and then I have something for you as participants that's left over from our 100th year. So don't get overly excited.